You ever stumble across a secret you weren't supposed to know? That's how this whole thing started. I'm sitting here, staring at my screen, fingers shaking a little as I type this out, because I need to get it off my chest. My name's Andrew, and I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not sorry either. She stole everything from me, my trust, my savings, my damn dignity, and I made him pay for it. Not her, him. The guy who thought he could just stand by and watch her ruin me. This isn't some noble tale of justice, it's messy, raw, and maybe a little unhinged. But I'm gonna tell you how it all went down, every twisted step, because I can't keep it bottled up anymore. It started 2 years ago, in a haze of late-night texts and promises that felt too good to be true. I was 32, fresh off a rough breakup, and trying to rebuild my life in a new city, Burlington, Vermont. I'd moved there for a tech job, good money, benefits, the whole deal. But I was lonely, you know. That kind of loneliness that makes you scroll through dating apps at 2 a.m., hoping for a spark. That's when I met Lila. She was charming, quick-witted, with this smile in her profile picture that made you feel like she was already in on some private joke with you. Her bio said she was an artist, loved hiking, and was looking for someone real. I swiped right, and we clicked instantly. We started messaging, then calling, then meeting up for coffee at this little shop downtown. Lila had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. Her laugh was infectious, her stories wild tales of backpacking through Europe, crashing art galleries, living out of a van for a summer. I was hooked. She'd lean in close, her hazel eyes locking onto mine, and I'd feel this rush, like I was finally alive again. Within a month, we were inseparable. She'd come over to my apartment, we'd cook dinner, watch old movies, talk about dreams. She said she wanted to open her own gallery someday, and I believed her. Hell, I wanted to help her make it happen. But there was always this other guy in the background, Nate Harper. Her best friend, she called him. They'd known each other since college, shared an apartment for a while, stayed tight. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, people have friends, right? Nate was this laid-back dude, always around, always smiling, always just a little too comfortable with Lila. He'd show up at the coffee shop when we were there, crack jokes, and I'd laugh along, trying not to feel like the third wheel. But there was something in the way he looked at her, the way she'd brush his arm when she laughed. It gnawed at me, but I pushed it down. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. 3 months in, Lila started talking about her big plan, a pop-up art show to launch her career. She had the vision, the talent, but not the cash. I just need a little help to get it off the ground, she said one night, curled up on my couch, her voice soft and pleading. I'd pay you back, Andrew. Every cent. I hesitated, but those eyes, man, they could convince you of anything. I wired her $10,000 from my savings. It was a lot, but I figured it was an investment in us, in her dream. She kissed me, called me her hero, and I felt like I was on top of the world. Weeks passed, and the art show never happened. Lila got cagey, started dodging questions. She'd say she was stressed, that venues were falling through, that she needed more time. Then she needed more money, another $5,000 for supplies. I gave it to her, because I loved her, because I believed in her. But the excuses kept piling up, and Nate was always there, hovering, smirking like he knew something I didn't. I started to wonder what was really going on, but I wasn't ready for the truth. Not yet. Then one day, I got a call from my bank. Suspicious activity on my account. Someone had tried to transfer $20,000 to an account I didn't recognize. I froze. My gut told me it was Lila, but I didn't want to believe it. I called her, no answer. Texted, nothing. I drove to her apartment, heart pounding, and found it empty. No furniture, no art, no Lila. Just a note on the counter, I'm sorry, Andrew. I had to. My world collapsed. She'd taken everything, my money, my trust, my heart and vanished. But Nate? He was still in town, living his life like nothing had happened. That's when I knew, he was part of it. And he was gonna pay. What do you do when someone rips your life apart? I couldn't let it go. I wouldn't. I sat in my car outside that empty apartment for hours, the note crumpled in my fist. Lila's handwriting was loopy, almost mocking, like she'd scribbled it in a rush to get out of town. I'm sorry, Andrew. I had to. Had to what? Ruin me? Steal my money and run? My head was spinning, a mix of rage and heartbreak, but mostly this hollow ache that made it hard to breathe. I kept thinking about Nate, too, his smug grin, the way he'd always been there, like a shadow I couldn't shake. I didn't have proof he was in on it, not yet, but my gut screamed he knew more than he let on. And if Lila was gone, Nate was the only one left to answer for it. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, replaying every moment with Lila. The late-night talks, the way she'd rest her head on my chest, the promises we made. Was it all a lie? I felt like an idiot, like I'd been played from the start. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized Nate had been there for every step of her scam. He'd been at the coffee shop when she first brought up the art show, nodding along like it was the greatest idea he'd ever heard. He'd been there when she asked for the second loan, saying, "You're a good guy, Andrew. She's lucky to have you." The memory made my blood boil. He wasn't just her friend, he was her accomplice. I spent that night digging through my phone, looking for clues. Old texts, photos, anything that might tell me where Lila went or what Nate knew. I found a picture from a hike we'd taken together, me, Lila, and Nate, smiling at the top of a trail. I zoomed in on Nate's face, that easy grin, and something too snapped in me. He didn't get to walk away from this. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make him feel what I was feeling: betrayed, humiliated, broken. The next morning, I started planning. I wasn't some mastermind, just a guy with a broken heart and a knack for tech. I worked as a systems analyst, which meant I knew how to find patterns, track data, dig into systems most people didn't even think about. If Lila had left a trail, I'd find it. And if Nate was part of it, I'd find that too. I started with what I knew: Lila's email, her phone number, the bank account she'd used for the transfers. The bank couldn't recover my money, her account was already drained, linked to some offshore shell company, but I wasn't giving up. I ran searches on her name, her aliases, anything I could think of. Nothing solid came up, but Nate was easier to track. He was still in Burlington, working as a freelance graphic designer. I found his portfolio online, his social media, his address. He lived in a small house on the edge of town, the kind of place you'd expect from a guy who thought he was too cool for a 9-to-5. I drove by one night, not sure what I was looking for, just needing to see where he was. The lights were on, music spilling out, and I saw him through the window, laughing with a couple of friends. It hit me like a punch: he was living his life, untouched, while I was falling apart. That's when the idea of revenge started to take shape, not just a feeling but a plan. I didn't want to hurt him, not physically. I'm not that guy. But I wanted him to lose something, the way I had. I wanted him to feel exposed, vulnerable, like his world could crumble. I started small, gathering intel. I checked his public profiles, cross-referenced his clients, his posts, his habits. Nate was careless online, didn't lock down his accounts, didn't use two-factor authentication, nothing. It was like he was begging to be messed with. I found an old blog he ran, full of pretentious posts about art and freedom, and there it was, a mention of Lila, a throwaway line about my partner in crime. It wasn't proof, but it was enough to fuel my fire. I started testing the waters, poking into his digital life. I got into his email. Not hard when someone uses password 123 with their dog's name tacked on. There were messages from Lila, cryptic ones, sent weeks after she disappeared. "Lay low," one said. "Don't worry, it's handled," said another. My heart raced. They were in on it together, no question. I didn't know where she was, but Nate was right here, and he was going to regret ever meeting her. I sat on that knowledge for days, letting it simmer. I didn't want to rush it, I wanted it to hurt. But how do you hurt someone who seems to have it all together? That's when I remembered something Lila had said about Nate, back when we were still a we. He was obsessed with his reputation, his cool guy persona. It was his currency. Clients hired him because he was the artsy, trustworthy type. If I could take that away, make him look like a fraud, it'd hit him where it hurt most. But I needed to be careful. One wrong move, and I'd be the one in trouble. I started small, planting seeds. I just didn't know how far I'd go. I couldn't sleep for weeks after finding those emails. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lila's note, Nate's smirk, the empty apartment. My days were a blur of work and obsession, my nights spent hunched over my laptop, digging deeper into Nate's life. I told myself I was just gathering information, but deep down, I knew I was building something, a trap, a way to make him pay. I wasn't thinking about justice anymore, it was personal. He'd been part of her scam, and I wanted him to feel the weight of it, the way I did every time I checked my bank account and saw the hole she'd left. Nate's digital footprint was a goldmine. He was one of those guys who lived for likes, always posting about his latest design gig or some artsy event he'd attended. His clients were small businesses, mostly coffee shops, local bands, a couple of nonprofits. They loved him because he had this knack for making their brands look cool, authentic. That was his weakness, I realized. His whole career depended on people trusting him. If I could undermine that trust, make him look unreliable or worse, it'd unravel everything he'd built. The thought gave me a sick kind of thrill, like I was finally taking back control. I started by mapping out his world. I made a spreadsheet. Yeah, I'm that guy, listing his clients, his projects, his contacts. I cross-referenced his emails with his portfolio, figuring out who he worked with regularly. There was this one client, a craft brewery called Hoppy Haven, that seemed to be his biggest gig. They paid him monthly for social media graphics, labels, all that stuff. I found their contract in his email, a sloppy PDF with no password protection. It was too easy. I could have sent it to a competitor, stirred up some drama, but that felt too blunt. I wanted something sharper, something that'd cut deeper. I decided to mess with his reputation indirectly. I created a fake email account, something generic like, and started sending anonymous tips to his clients. Nothing too wild at first, just little nudges. Hey, just a heads up, I heard Nate Harper missed a deadline with another client, or noticed some of Nate's designs look a lot like, insert random artist. Might want to check. I didn't have proof of either, but people get paranoid. I knew they'd start looking at him differently, double-checking his work, maybe asking questions. Doubt is a slow poison, and I was just getting started. I also found a forum where local freelancers hung out, swapping tips and horror stories. I posted there, too, using a different alias. Anyone worked with Nate Harper? Heard he's been flaky lately. I didn't overdo it, just enough to plant a seed. I'd check back every few days, see people chiming in, some defending him, others saying they'd heard similar things. It was working. His name was starting to carry a little dirt, and he didn't even know it yet. But I wasn't satisfied. I wanted him to feel the betrayal, the way I had when Lila disappeared. So I dug deeper, looking for something personal. That's when I found his side hustle, a little Etsy shop where he sold custom prints. He'd post about it sometimes, proud of his passion project. The shop was linked to his PayPal, which was linked to his email, which I was already in. I didn't take any money, that'd be too traceable, but I noticed he hadn't updated his shop in a while. Perfect. I logged in, changed a few product descriptions to sound unprofessional, swapped out some images for blurry ones. Small stuff, but enough to make him look sloppy. If he noticed, he'd think it was a glitch. If he didn't, his customers would. I kept tabs on him in person, too. Not stalking, exactly, but I'd drive by his house sometimes, see who was coming and going. One night, I saw him arguing with someone on his porch, a woman, not Lila, but someone upset. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but Nate looked rattled, gesturing wildly. It made me wonder if he was starting to feel the pressure, if my little moves were getting under his skin. I hoped so. The thing is, revenge is addictive. Every time I sent an email or tweaked something in his shop, I felt a rush, like I was taking back a piece of what I'd lost. But it also scared me. I wasn't this guy, you know. I'd always been the nice one, the guy who helped his girlfriend chase her dreams, the guy who trusted people. Now I was lying, scheming, crossing lines I didn't even know I had. I'd look in the mirror and barely recognize myself. But I couldn't stop. Not when I was so close to making him crack. What would he do when he realized someone was coming for him? The thing about revenge is it starts to consume you, like a fire you can't put out. By month 3 of my plan, I was in deep, checking Nate's emails daily, tweaking his life bit by bit, watching the ripples spread. I'd tell myself I was just evening the score, but it was more than that. It was like I needed to see him fall apart to feel whole again. I'd lost so much to Lila: $15,000, my trust, my ability to look at people without wondering what they wanted from me. Nate was my way to take it all back, even if it meant becoming someone I didn't like. I started noticing changes in him. His online posts got less frequent, less polished. He used to post every other day some new design, a shot of his coffee, a quote about creativity. Now it was once a week, if that, and the captions were curt, like he was distracted. I saw it in person, too. One evening, I was at a bar downtown, keeping my distance, when I spotted him with a couple of friends. He wasn't his usual charming self, no big laughs, no easy grin. He looked tired, like he was carrying something heavy. I felt a twisted kind of satisfaction. My anonymous emails, the forum posts, the Etsy tweaks, they were working. People were talking, doubting him. I'd even seen a comment on that freelance forum: Nate Harper bailed on a project last minute. Not cool. I didn't know if it was true, but it didn't matter. The narrative was shifting. Then I got bolder. I found an email from Hoppy Haven, his big brewery client, asking about a late delivery. Perfect. I replied from my fake account, posing as a concerned vendor, saying I'd heard Nate was taking on too many projects, dropping the ball. I attached a screenshot of one of his Etsy listings, the one I'd sabotaged, with a blurry image and a typo-ridden description. "Is this the kind of work you're paying for?" I wrote. It was risky, but I was careful: no traceable IP, no real name. I sent it and waited. A week later, I saw an email from Hoppy Haven in Nate's inbox. They were re-evaluating their contract and wanted to meet in person. I could almost hear his panic through the screen. He replied, all professional, promising to clear up any misunderstandings, but I knew he was scrambling. I'd hit a nerve. Part of me wanted to stop there, call it even. He was stressed, his reputation was taking hits, maybe that was enough. But then I'd think of Lila's note, the way she played me, and I'd see Nate's face in that hiking photo, smirking like he knew it all along. No, I wasn't done. I decided to up the ante. Nate's Etsy shop was still active, but sales were slowing, probably because of my tweaks. I logged in again and changed his shop's banner to something generic, unprofessional, like a stock photo of a sunset with Comic Sans text, "Art by Nate." It was petty, but it'd make customers hesitate. I also posted a fake review from a burner account, saying the print I'd ordered arrived damaged, and Nate never responded. I knew it'd sting. His shop was his pride, his authentic side hustle. Every hit I landed felt like a small victory, but it also left me hollow. I was winning, but at what cost? Then something unexpected happened. I was checking his email one night when I saw a new message from Lila. My heart stopped. It was short, no subject line: "You okay? Heard things are rough. Call me." She'd sent it from a new address, one I didn't recognize, but it was her same tone, same little heart emoji she always used. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. She was still out there, still talking to him, still acting like she cared. And he was replying, saying he was dealing with some crap, but didn't want to drag her into it. Drag her into it? She was the reason for all of it. That email lit a new fire in me. They were still connected, still covering for each other. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to demand answers. But I knew that'd blow everything. I'd lose the upper hand. Instead, I forwarded the email to myself, saved it, and started digging into the new address. It was a long shot, but maybe I could trace her. Maybe I could find out where she'd gone with my money, my trust. I spent hours running searches, checking IP logs, anything I could think of. Nothing solid, but I wasn't giving up. I started wondering what Nate would do if he knew someone was watching. Would he panic? Fight back? Or would he run, like Lila did? I needed to find out. By now, I was living two lives. During the day, I was Andrew, systems analyst, showing up to work, nodding at meetings, pretending everything was fine. At night, I was someone else, someone obsessed, someone who spent hours unraveling Nate Harper's life, piece by piece. I'd tell myself I was in control, that I was just teaching him a lesson, but the truth was, I was slipping. The line between justice and revenge was gone, and I didn't care. All I could think about was making him feel what I felt: helpless, betrayed, exposed. Nate was starting to crack. I saw it in his emails, his posts, the way he carried himself. I'd gone back to that bar a couple of times, keeping my distance, watching. He was drinking more, arguing with friends, looking over his shoulder like he knew something was off. My anonymous emails had done their job. Hoppy Haven had cut their contract with him, citing concerns about reliability. I found out through an email he sent to a friend, ranting about how he'd been sabotaged. Sabotaged. The word made me smile, but it also twisted something in my gut. I was the bad guy now, wasn't I? But I couldn't stop. Not when I was so close. I decided to hit him harder. His Etsy shop was barely limping along. Sales were down, reviews were mixed, thanks to my fake ones. I logged in one night and deleted a few listings, not all of them, just enough to make it look like he was abandoning the shop. I also changed his PayPal email to a dummy one I'd set up, so any new orders would bounce. It was risky, too many changes, and he'd notice someone was in his account. But I was careful, covering my tracks, using VPNs, never logging in from the same place twice. I wasn't a hacker, but I knew enough to stay invisible. Then I went after his personal life. I'd found his dating profile on one of those apps, not the one I'd met Lila on, a different one. He was still playing the charming artist, posting photos of himself at art shows, smiling like nothing was wrong. It made me sick. He didn't deserve to move on, to keep living like he hadn't helped ruin me. So I catfished him. I set up a fake profile: Sarah, 29, a photographer with a love for craft beer and indie music. I used stock photos, kept it vague but flirty. He took the bait, messaging Sarah within hours. We chatted for days, me feeding him just enough to keep him hooked, mirroring his interests, laughing at his jokes. It was so easy it almost felt wrong. I led him on, setting up a date at a bar across town. I didn't show up, of course, but I watched from my car as he sat there, checking his phone, waiting for Sarah, who never came. He looked pathetic, sipping his beer, texting me her asking if I was running late. I sent a final message from Sarah's account: heard some things about you, Nate. Not interested. Then I deleted the profile. I wanted him to feel rejected, to wonder what people were saying about him. I wanted him to doubt himself the way I doubted myself every time I thought about Lila. But it wasn't enough. I kept going back to that email from Lila, the one where she asked if he was okay. It ate at me, knowing they were still in touch, knowing she was out there somewhere, living off my money. I started digging into her new email address, running it through every database I could access. I found a lead, a forum post from an art community, someone mentioning a Lila M. selling prints in a small town in Oregon. It wasn't much, but it was something. I saved it, told myself I'd deal with her later. For now, Nate was my focus. Then, one night, everything changed. I was in his email again, skimming through new messages, when I saw one from a client, a small nonprofit he'd done a logo for. They were furious, saying he'd sent them a file with inappropriate content. My heart stopped. I hadn't done that. I'd messed with his Etsy shop, his dating profile, his reputation, but I hadn't touched his client files. Someone else was screwing with him. Was it Lila? Someone he'd pissed off? Or had I gone too far, and he was starting to suspect something? Who else was playing this game? I was in over my head, and I knew it. Finding that email about inappropriate content shook me. I'd been so careful, so calculated, but now it felt like the ground was shifting. Was someone else targeting Nate? Had he pissed off another client, another mark like me? Or worse, had he figured out someone was messing with him and set a trap? I didn't know, but it made me paranoid. I started double-checking my own accounts, my passwords, my digital tracks. If Nate was onto me, I couldn't afford a single mistake. I backed off for a few days, trying to clear my head. I went to work, kept my routine, even tried going on a date. Some woman from my office, nice enough, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to Nate, to Lila, to the mess I'd made. I'd wanted him to suffer, and his business was tanking, his shop was a mess, his confidence was shot. But it didn't feel like a win. It felt like I was drowning in my own anger, and now there was this new player, this unknown who'd sent that file. I needed to know who it was. I went back to his email, cautious, using a new VPN just in case. The nonprofit had followed up, saying they were done with him, no explanation beyond unprofessional conduct. Nate's response was frantic, begging for details, promising to fix it. I almost felt bad for him almost. Then I saw another email from Lila, this one longer. Nate, I'm worried. People are talking about you here. What's going on? Call me. Here. Where was she? I cross-referenced the email's metadata, traced it to a server in Portland, Oregon. It matched the forum post I'd found. Lila was in Portland, and she was still pulling Nate's strings. That's when it hit me, she wasn't just his friend. She was his partner, in every sense. They'd planned it together, her charming me, taking my money, disappearing while he played the innocent bystander. The betrayal cut deeper than ever. I'd been focused on Nate, but Lila was the puppet master. Still, Nate was here, and she wasn't. He was the one I could reach. I decided to go all in. I'd been chipping away at his life, but now I wanted him to know someone was coming for him. I hacked into his portfolio site again, his security was a joke, and replaced his homepage with a single line, "You can't hide from what you did." I didn't sign it, didn't need to. He'd know it was about Lila, about me, about the scam. I watched the site's traffic, saw him log in an hour later, saw the page go down as he scrambled to fix it. Good. Let him sweat. But the next day, I got a shock. Nate emailed me, Andrew, not some fake account. "Hey, man, long time," it started, all casual, like we were old buddies. "I know things ended rough with Lila. I'm sorry about that. Can we talk?" My stomach dropped. Why was he reaching out now? Did he know what I was doing? Was this a bluff, or was he genuinely clueless? I didn't respond, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was testing me. I checked my accounts again, changed every password, locked everything down. I wasn't going to let him turn this around on me. I kept pushing. I sent more anonymous tips to his remaining clients, leaked a few of his emails to that freelance forum, made it look like he was bad-mouthing competitors. His world was shrinking, and I could feel it. But that inappropriate content email kept nagging at me. I dug into it, found the file in question, a logo with a hidden message, something crude embedded in the design. It wasn't my style, too sloppy, too obvious. Someone else was in this, and they weren't playing by my rules. I started to wonder if Lila was behind it. Was she double-crossing Nate, too? Or was there another victim out there, someone else she'd burned, now coming for both of them? The thought made my head spin. I was so close to breaking him, but the game was getting crowded, and I didn't know who I could trust. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? I didn't see it coming, but I should have. Revenge is a slippery thing. It feels good until it doesn't, until you realize you're not the only one playing the game. By the time I got Nate's email, I was too deep to back out, but I was also starting to see the cracks in my own plan. He'd reached out, acting friendly, like he didn't know I was the one tearing his life apart. "Can we talk?" he'd written. I ignored it, but it haunted me. Was he baiting me, or was he really that clueless? Either way, I couldn't stop now. I'd come too far, and Lila was still out there, living off my money, while Nate played the victim. I doubled down. I hacked into his social media, posted a vague, cryptic status from his account. Sometimes you don't see the truth until it's too late. I watched the comments roll in, friends asking if he was okay, clients DMing him, worried. It was chaos, just like I wanted. His phone must have been blowing up, people demanding answers he didn't have. I pictured him pacing his house, that same house I'd driven by so many times, trying to figure out what was happening. I wanted him to feel trapped, the way I'd felt when I found Lila's note. But then I got careless. I was so focused on Nate, I didn't notice the signs. My own email got hacked, nothing major, just a password reset attempt that I caught in time. Then my bank flagged another suspicious login, same as before, when Lila tried to drain my account. It wasn't her style, though she was gone, untouchable in Portland. This felt like Nate, fighting back. I checked his email, found nothing to suggest he knew it was me, but I couldn't shake the feeling he was closing in. Or maybe it was the other player, the one who'd sent that crude file. I was paranoid, checking my locks, my accounts, my everything. I decided to end it. One final blow to Nate, something he couldn't recover from. I'd found his biggest remaining client, a local music festival, and I knew they were his last lifeline. I sent them an anonymous email, attaching a doctored invoice showing Nate had overcharged them by thousands. I included a screenshot of his Etsy shop, now a mess thanks to me, and wrote, "This is who you're working with." It was a lie, but it was believable. They dropped him within days, and I saw the fallout in his emails: desperate pleas, excuses, promises to make it right. He was done. I thought I'd feel something: triumph, relief, anything. But I just felt empty. Nate was ruined, his reputation in tatters, his clients gone, his shop dead. I'd made him pay, just like I'd promised myself. But Lila was still out there, and I was no closer to finding her. I tracked that Portland lead, found an address tied to her new email, but when I called the local art gallery, they said Lila M. had left town weeks ago. Another dead end. She was a ghost, and I'd been chasing shadows. Then Nate called me. Not an email, a call, straight to my phone. I let it go to voicemail, my heart pounding. "Andrew, it's Nate. I know you're mad about Lila, but I didn't do anything. I'm getting hit from all sides, man. If you know something, please, just talk to me." His voice was shaky, broken. For a second, I felt a pang of guilt. Had I gone too far? Was he really innocent? But then I remembered Lila's emails, their partner in crime vibe, and I knew he wasn't clean. I didn't call back. Instead, I shut it all down, deleted my fake accounts, wiped my VPN logs, covered my tracks. I'd done what I set out to do. Nate was paying a price higher than he'd expected, just like I'd wanted. But as I sit here, typing this, I'm not sure who won. I'm not the guy I was before Lila, before Nate, before this whole mess. I thought revenge would fix me, but it just left me with more questions. Who else was out there, messing with Nate? Was Lila playing us both? And what happens if she comes back? I made him pay, but at what cost to me?